It's the Raw Meat Podcast, the most mediocre wrestling podcast on the internet. With the smart Greg Adams, the nature boy Jay Watley, and the hardcore icon Puff.
And it is going to be a big, fat, long, thick podcast today. Well, we got so much to cover.
It's going to be a huge load.
Oh, no, okay. Greg Adams here, Puff over there, Jay Watley here. We have a ton to talk about because over the weekend, I got to attend a WWE live event. Puff got to attend Monday Night Raw, and Jay may have actually watched some Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, just to see if I could find Puff anywhere.
So this is crazy. Like, we all went above and beyond our normal wrestling watching this weekend. Okay, let me...
It's funny that your above and beyond is being there and mine is just turning it on.
I know, it's crazy,
You
right?
watching in real time is amazing.
So let me just share a couple of thoughts on the live event in Baton Rouge I was at. It was kind of a spontaneous thing, didn't plan on it, so ended up with decent seats, but not the kind of seats that I would have liked to have had. I would have, of course, loved to have been like Puff and on the floor right next to the ring.
Not the type of seats that a member of the Raw Meat Podcast deserves.
Okay, well, if you want to go that direction. But it was good because I had an opportunity to, first of all, see that the crowd at the Baton Rouge show, not as good as I would have expected to have. With as stacked of a card as they had, would have liked to have seen more people out. But Sunday night, whatever. The biggest thing that sticks out to me, first of all, how damn good Seth Rollins is. Mm-hmm. The main event that night, and there's really nothing else that took place that we really need to focus on at that live event, except for the main event, because you got to see Seth Rollins versus AJ Styles versus Roman Reigns in a triple threat for the championship. And it was the first time I've got to see Seth Rollins in a ring post-surgery.
That's one hell of a main event, though.
Yeah, and I mean, going into it, that the belt's not changing hands. It's a house show. Still, it's not happening.
Wow.
But if you're going to have a championship match at a house show, you hope that it has the level of talent that match actually included.
Which is a lot better than when they were doing house shows 3-4 years ago, where it was like Big Show versus...
Yeah.
They were just terrible main events.
And they have to put some of those out there. But at this point, we're just lucking out at live events because you have a guy who is the champion still, never lost it, who needs to get back in ring shape before a pay-per-view this weekend, so they need to get him in the ring. And the match included some fantastic spots. I wish I would have got to see the Vertebreaker, which they pulled out on Saturday night at their live event in Mississippi. They didn't pull it out in Baton Rouge. But the biggest thing that sticks out, and the one thing I really wanted to focus on, I understand the Roman Reigns push now. I've never understood the Roman Reigns push before, outside of like a 48-hour period after TLC last year where Triple H told him, destroy me with the chair, and he did, and he looked good, and everyone loved that deranged chair shot Roman Reigns. Everyone loved that, and it went away after he started talking on a microphone again. He didn't have to talk on a mic Sunday night. And the thing that happened, that crowd was so pro Roman Reigns. He was so over with him, but the crowd wasn't made up of your normal TV taping crowd. Your crowd wasn't guys in their mid-30s with expendable income buying a $150 ticket to the show. This was $15 tickets. This was $40 tickets for good seats. This was a family event, and there were a lot of kids, families, and the weirdest thing in the world, single women. Like groups of just 4 and 5 women or just 2 women together going to this show wearing John Cena and Roman Reigns gear because Roman Reigns and his athletic prowess has attracted so many women to the product right now, which is something they haven't had and something that I bet Vince loves right now. So that's where the push comes from. It's not you turn on Raw, and again, you heard him booed, and you can speak to this. You were there. How loud were the boos Monday in New Orleans?
Oh, God. They were deafening. I mean, I don't. After watching back the TV replay, because I watched that yesterday after I got back in town, I don't know where they had microphones set up, but the amount of boos did not translate in television the way it happened in the arena.
Yeah, in television, it almost sounded like at times he was being cheered.
Well, and I think he is. I think he actually is getting cheered even on TV tapings because the cheers you hear are a high-pitched volume. They're women and children.
Well, the other thing, too, is if they have mics set up near the, I don't want to say the cheap seats, but the not premium seats, those are the people that were cheering for Roman Reigns. Like my area, it was nothing but like booing Roman, cheering Seth, and CM Punk chants.
And I think that's the difference in
Started by you, I'm sure.
No, actually, I wanted to start one, but it started without me.
It's the difference in who the product is appealing to right now. You have people who have been like we've all had, whether it's one consistent turn, and I don't think everybody has like a big consistent 20-year fandom of pro wrestling. You usually have really big in the early 90s, especially the Attitude Era, and then a lot of people went away in the Ruthless Aggression Era, and they've come back recently. And I think that a lot of those people that have come back, the former Attitude Era people, they're older now. They have disposable income. They have jobs. They're looking for the entertainment value. They're buying the expensive tickets to the TV shows. You have people who are diehard fans going to TV tapings and pay-per-views, and those are the people who hate Roman Reigns right now. They're super marks. They're smarks. And when you go to the live event, that's not them. That's not it. And so I think that's where the difference comes in. And I think Vince and Triple H hear the live shows way more than they hear the TV tapings. And that's why they're still pushing that guy.
Bada bing.
Well, and they're kind of locked into it. You have to let once they went down that road, there's no abort plan. You know what I mean?
That's another whole big problem that I have right now, because we're in an era where people have to hold the belts for 200 days. Like we don't have, if you go back and look at the title reigns for the Attitude Era in the WCW world and in the WWE world, you didn't know when you tuned in title could change tonight. Any of the titles could change tonight.
I think we're going to get back to that, but that's another podcast for another time.
We've got way too much, so that's the live event. Before we go match by match in Monday Night Raw, I want to give you the floor to describe what it was like to be sitting right behind Byron Saxton's head at Monday Night Raw.
Oh, it was awesome. Other than the annoying guy behind me that kept on yelling at me for standing up, everyone that was around me was awesome.
And his stupid little kid that couldn't see.
Hey. The kid wasn't the problem. He wasn't complaining. But the crowd was awesome. You got a great view of a lot of the action. It was just awesome. Plus, a funny side story. At the very last match, when Kevin Owens was coming out to do commentary, the guy in the front row tried to lean over to take a selfie with Kevin, and Kevin just reached over and grabbed his cell phone so he couldn't take a picture, not breaking his concentration. He was still getting his notes from the production truck or whatever, and he caught it out of the corner of his eyes and just put his hand up and grabbed the camera.
Wow.
He's too good.
He was awesome. By the way, also during that match, there's something that happened that you guys didn't see on television. Del Rio and Cesaro were having a blast with each other. Cesaro had the microphone in his hand, and Del Rio had the little hammer for the bell, and they kept on putting it in their hand to make it look like a middle finger, and were flipping each other off. And Del Rio was messing with the guy in a Cesaro shirt right behind him, like fake flipping him off. It was great. I when Del Rio came back, I was like, I don't know about this guy. He doesn't seem to have a personality, blah, blah, blah. Dude's awesome. If they let that guy run around the ring, the guy I saw outside just playing with Cesaro, that's the Del Rio we need on television.
Yeah, I've seen some of the old school Del Rio clips. I wasn't watching heavily during his first run, so I'm not as familiar. But when they allowed him to stretch it with the comedy a little bit more, I think that's the pocket that he lives in. He's a great heel.
Oh, yeah.
He's a fantastic heel, but I think he's even better. He could be a great face with some comedic leanings if they gave him that room to grow.
Well, I mean, even if you made him a heel and let him just talk down to people and be condescending in a funny way, sort of like Jericho, but not as whiny, I guess, because Jericho has that element. Mm-hmm. He could do wonders. I mean, I became a Del Rio fan just watching him from 3 feet away.
I go back and forth with do I actually like Del Rio or do I not like Del Rio? I mean, his work in the ring, and we've talked about it a lot of times, where his move set is pretty Elementary.
I hate that damn move.
His finisher
Can we
sucks.
just not even talk about it?
But if you get rid of his I think during his first run, his finisher was a submission hold.
Bring it back.
Yeah, he had the arm. I don't even remember what it's called.
Arm bar.
Well, kind of. He's used it a couple of times. He also had the move where he does a super kick to a guy's head when he's on his knees. He has a couple of different finishers. It's just for some reason right now he's locked into the.
Well, in his
stomp.
absence, Seth Rollins started doing the super kick from the knees. So.
And I wonder what's going to happen when Finn comes up, whether it's post-draft or whenever it happens. He's going to continue to use the coup de grace, which is a better version of what Del Rio's doing right now. So is Del Rio going to be allowed to keep that, or is he just using it now because he's not going to use it when Finn comes up?
I don't know. I just hope they get rid of it because it sucks. Him and Ambrose moveset pisses me off.
So, Kevin Owens, great in person. Del Rio, great in person. What about, this is something that I really wanted to talk about since you were actually there, the women's reaction. Was there actually, because I don't know if they're pumping the crowd noise, when the women come out and they have their match, is the crowd actually into it?
I'll be honest, I took a little break during the women's match, but I did come back for the finish, and people were going nuts when Paige nailed
the Rampage.
Yeah, the Rampage. Like people lost it. Like it was loud. So, and during the pre-show, they had a Sasha Banks versus Summer Rae match, which was mediocre at best, but the reaction to Sasha hitting her moves was up there.
Sasha's a star right now, and I don't know why she's being held on like superstars and why she's doing pre-show and dark matches.
Well, she got that concussion, and this is like her third big injury, I think, since joining like NXT, starting down there. So I think they're like, all right, we got to see if this chick's injury prone before we strap her up. So we're going to keep her off of TV in case she kills herself.
Well, you got to use, if that's the case, use her as much as you can on TV because the window is going to close if she's injury prone. Get as much out of her as you can now.
Yeah, I get where you're. I think they, after Daniel Bryan, they're all right. We built him up. He was the biggest star in the company, and all of a sudden he's gone. And we have to break it to the crowd like he's never coming back, ladies and gentlemen. Which was, a lot of people. Oh, the fans turned on him like it's all Vince's fault. No, Daniel has a lesion on his brain. There's other issues. This is what needs to happen. But I think they're trying to avoid that type of situation and check out her durability.
So what are some of the other things that we didn't get to see on TV that you got to experience being there?
All right. The way they edit the show was pretty amazing. Like when superstars' entrances start and they're like, cut to a promo instead of the superstar. Like a great example was Sheamus came out with his open and was doing the thing, and then they showed like the Charlotte backstage thing. Sheamus stopped on the top, on the second rope and was just waiting for the promo to end. And then when the lights came back on, that's when he put his arms up and started. So it was live edits that you got to watch. And a lot of times if something happened after the intro started, they would fade down the music, play the backstage segment, and then fade it back up to the perfect where it would be if they played the whole song, which was kind of amazing.
That weirds me out. I don't know.
It's kind of weird watching it, but it's also kind of amazing when you see it live and then you go back and watch it on television. You're like, wow, they have this down to a science.
And it's completely different from like WrestleMania because WrestleMania, there's no commercial breaks.
Yeah.
There was none of that. So like being at WrestleMania and then watching WrestleMania back, you missed out on like
Kevin Owens yelling coming down the entranceway and some of the stuff.
Yeah.
But you didn't miss any major moments.
Right. So there's a total difference between the live TV.
Oh, yeah.
What about the Jericho Dean Ambrose script?
Oh, I was going to get that when we start talking about individual matches.
Oh, okay, whatever.
All right, so let's actually do that though. Let's get into this because we're trying to cram as much as we can into this. I'm not going to go complete match by match because some of the matches don't really warrant a long conversation. But that opening promo between New Day, Big Cass, Enzo, the Vaudevillains, and the Club is, to me, one of the highlights. That's one of the top 5 Raw opens of the year.
And it had an amazing reaction from start to finish. New Day came out. It was loud. Enzo and Cass's music hit. People went nuts. Vaudevillains come out. They got booed pretty good, which is amazing for those guys. They've improved so much. It's insane.
And let me park right there for a second, because that is one of the things from the live event. Those guys came out, and I expected there to be nothing. I'm warming up to them as heels. But I didn't think that the main audience, the mainstream audience, was going to hate those guys. It's hard to actually... Here's the difference. They got booed at the live event. They got booed hard. And they had some good liners, too. Aiden English comes down halfway down the ramp, and he says, "It's almost Father's Day. How many fathers do we have with us tonight?" And they get a little cheer. And he's like, no, really, how many fathers are here tonight? And there's a little bit bigger of a cheer. Great. Shut your mouths now so your kids can hear a real man for once in their life.
That's awesome.
That was brilliant. And you got real heel heat. Now, what happened that really separated that is the Shining Stars came out, the little Puerto Rican outfit they have. Nobody cared. As much as they tried to get heel heat, they couldn't. The crowd is just dead. Nobody cared.
By the way, just to interject, you know how they play those promos? Well, they play on the Jumbotron or Titantron or whatever the hell we call it now. And people, you could hear an audible, when that was playing. Like, people were kind of laughing at the Bob Backlund, Darren Young one.
Yeah.
Like, this is sort of amusing. But as soon as the Shining Star ones hit, people were like, Jesus. I mean, you could hear it in the crowd, like people just moaning like,
and
this
it's
sucks.
not the same when New Day started. And when New Day was doing the gospel gimmick and they were coming out, and people weren't disinterested. They were just confused. Like, what is this? This is really what we're doing right now? Where the Shining Stars, there's just no interest. Like, how do you feel if you have any kind of... Jack Swagger started a USA chant, because it was Jack Swagger, Dolph Ziggler versus the Shining Stars. So he starts a USA chant, which was perfect because it gave the Shining Stars the ability to grab the mic and say, you all need a geography lesson because Puerto Rico is part of the U.S. So I think it was put in there intentionally
to give them
that chance to get the jab in. But there's no way to build heel heat on the guys just being excited about being from Puerto Rico. You
feel bad for them too, because I actually think they're pretty good.
They need to just put the masks on and get El Torito back and go back to the Los Matadors gimmick.
I've mentioned this before. They've had 4 gimmicks now, and all of them have tanked. Either, if not immediately, pretty quickly after they debuted. It's time to cut those guys loose. Nothing they do works.
Well, you know what? Maybe bring Carlito back in, and maybe give them an actual stable. Maybe give them a faction and let them try something that direction.
There you go.
But the 2-guy gimmick is just they don't have enough talent on the mic to make it happen.
We got off the Vaudevillains, but I love that singing bit. I love that.
I enjoy that.
That is so funny to me.
I am so happy where they're at right now. I'm so excited with the tag team division. It's amazing how great it can become when you just you've added 3 tag teams, and it's now
with more to come.
And and it's now one of the highlights of Monday nights.
Oh, by the way, going back to the intros and everyone walking out, Luke Gallows did a great job getting the crowd to turn on him, because they came out to a big pop. People were cheering the club, and I think they realized, all right, we got to be the bad guys. So they had that line about about the Saints.
Yeah.
And the crowd immediately turned on them. And when they came out later for the dark match, which we can get into later, which was AJ Styles and Seth Rollins versus John Cena and Roman Reigns, and they came out with AJ, and the heat carried over from the first segment all the way to the dark match.
Let's not go through the whole match. The shoes gimmick with Kofi,
great,
fantastic.
Yeah.
All right,
the Seinfeld pop,
Jerry Seinfeld joints.
And here was the moment that you guys didn't get to see about that, which really sucks because it tied the whole promo together with the match. Kofi hits that amazing spot, diving over the post, nailing the Vaudevillains. Kofi gets in the ring, starts celebrating, and it cuts to commercial. And you guys, well, in the ring, he yells at Big E, "See, I told you these shoes were for real, man," and was dancing and showing off his shoes, and everybody was clapping for the shoes.
That's so.
That's when they should have cut the. But also, Mike, what's the referee's name? Mike
Chioda.
Chioda. Something happened during the match where he knocked off his mic. So if you notice that spot, you don't see a referee in the ring because I guess he knew, like, all right, it's kind of time for commercial. So he slipped out of the ring and was over with the production team that's next to Lillian Garcia getting his mic fixed.
All the things we don't get to see, all the behind-the-scenes stuff.
I love that kind of stuff, though, man.
The Francesca, I'm the only one who blows my girl standoff too. That's how you build vaudevillain heat, because you actually had that moment we've talked about for a long time. Xavier Woods versus Enzo Amore, mic to mic, and they're building it up, and they are toe to toe, and they are ready to go
and
with
it's
what
baby.
we've been waiting for this, and then vaudevillain's
black
music
and
hit,
white,
and they take it away from us.
Yeah,
that's so
with
perfect.
him singing though, because that's when they did the singing bit,
and that's when the Bullet
so
Club interrupted.
Funny, yeah.
Yeah,
or the Good Brothers, or whatever the hell we're calling them.
Whatever they're called now. Big soft chant too, and then the match itself was pretty good. We're gonna do predictions for Money in the Bank later this week, but the fact that they allowed the Club and Vaudevillains to win takes away my opinion that the Club is gonna win the belts on Sunday. I don't think
I'm keeping my mouth shut because I
doesn't
don't want
take
to.
away your opinion that Jericho's gonna win Money in the Bank.
That's a little different. That is different.
I'm keeping my thoughts to myself because I don't want to tip you people off to my amazing
Believe me,
picks.
we don't care.
I want to say was not a huge fan of all of the Shield promos that they were running.
Well, you knew, and then when they go to the Ambrose Asylum and they're setting it up, and then Seth Rollins gets on board and he's talking about
I want to get there. Hold on.
By the way, just a little side note: in the arena, we had no idea what the hell because you can't hear the commentators, so there's no setup. All of a sudden, people would be walking back, and a weird Shield promo would pop up on the big screen, and you're like, "What the hell is going on?"
The Shield. So. Next in order is something that I want to talk about. The Stephanie McMahon, Shane McMahon, who's running SmackDown, who's running Raw. This still, and I'm trying to be as pro WWE as I can right now. The cohesiveness of this storyline is slipping away week by week. They're not keeping this together at all. It's short little 30-second bursts of, okay, we're building a story, and then it completely goes away.
Well, it seems maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm nuts. Maybe I'm crazy. But I like what they're doing now as compared to what they were doing 3 weeks ago, where it made absolutely no sense. At least now there's a little sibling right. I want it. No, I want it all. Screw you. At least there's a little bit of combativeness where it makes, they're starting to, the wheels are falling off of this thing, and we're getting a little, so at least there's something happening.
Okay, but here, so 2 weeks ago, you have Stephanie say, all right, I'll take SmackDown, you take Raw. And there was a fight over that. No, I'll take SmackDown, you take Raw. So then this week, you have Shane say, okay, go ahead, you take SmackDown. And she says, no, I don't want SmackDown, you take SmackDown. Like,
well, actually,
it's not cohesive.
What she said is, I want it all. It needs to be me Monday and Tuesday, which
that's where it started. And then Shane delved into the, you take this, you take this. And then the thing that really stuck out and was hard for me, and this is me reading too much into it, of course, because it's pro wrestling and I need to remember that. But they did the whole vacation thing with Shane last week, and then he starts to talk about, why were you telling everyone it's vacation? It wasn't vacation. You knew exactly what I was doing. I was doing something very important. It was something we should talk about. And they were building up like they were going to reveal what it was Shane was doing, and then it didn't go anywhere.
Keeps you interested till next week.
You know who saved that whole thing, though? Better than Teddy, whatever his face is last week.
You know what I think they're building up for? Shane's having quote-unquote secret meetings with a certain someone, and whoever that certain someone is going to be the guy that runs SmackDown.
Well, I know who it is.
But, you know what? With everyone coming back, you've had, Teddy Long last week. You had Kane this week.
I thought we agreed we weren't going to say his name on the podcast.
I'm building to something, Greg, that you're going to like. With all these former leadership people coming on.
What did you guys like the Undertaker's letter of recommendation?
Paul Heyman. Shut up.
Ain't happening.
Paul Heyman on TV. I don't care if he actually runs SmackDown, but him for 30 minutes on Monday Night Raw will be worth it.
No, I do want him to run SmackDown.
Well, I think that's what we all.
I think everyone in the universe wants it. That ain't happening. Though.
But, I mean, it's not going to happen. He doesn't want to do that. But him on TV for 30 minutes, sign me up.
Kane's comedic value
he's
so understated.
Right.
He came in and saved that thing so hard. And
man.
all of the tongue-in-cheek personality disorder drops, all of the...
This will burn your house down.
It was so good.
That was money in the bank.
I almost hate to say this. I like Corporate Kane better than I like Demon Kane.
No.
You have to have both, though. That's the way it works.
Well, yeah.
You always have the threat that if you piss off Corporate Kane, Demon Kane is going to come down to the ring and torch it.
Well, that's what I mean. I like that aspect as opposed to what they've been doing after they kind of killed Kane off from the... And it was just Demon Kane, and there was no story. It just kind of popped up.
Bro, when he got that letter of recommendation from The Undertaker, that made me laugh so hard.
Here's a letter from someone you're very well acquainted with. My brother. It was awesome. And there, I don't know what the reaction was or if you could hear it on the television, but in the crowd, people were laughing their asses off.
I don't think we got much volume from that. I want to roll real quick through this. The Titus O'Neil-Rusev thing, it didn't do anything for me. It basically just emulated something you see in the video game. Like you choose, all right, I'm going to interrupt because he's my rival. I'm going to interrupt at the top of the ramp, and I'm going to interrupt here. And like that... there's nothing.
I like, though, getting back to making Rusev look like just a monster.
Yeah.
I like that. I think that's the only way he can work. So I liked him just being ruthless.
Yeah, I enjoyed that part of it, but from my seats, I thought Titus Tripp coming out there because you know where I'm sitting, it's all the way down at the entrance ramp. Plus, I'm looking through Byron Saxton's head in the ring. So all I do is, Titus's music hits, people are cheering, and all of a sudden you see him come stumbling out and fall off the edge of the stage. I was like, holy crap!
Okay, so Ambrose Asylum with Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. First of all, this is a great way to get those guys in the ring without having them actually fight right before the pay-per-view. Tremendous opportunity. I want to go back to what you started to talk about earlier, the abilities of Seth Rollins.
Oh, God, that guy's so good.
The fact that he is able to tell a story and take the entire audience, with the 25,000 people or whatever was in the Smoothie King Center, and all the people watching, able to take them on an emotional roller coaster in a 3-minute promo that I don't think anybody has been able to do since CM Punk.
And by the way, not to get off this topic, but during the dark match, he did another thing where, you know how like wrestlers throw their gear out, like, here's a shirt. He started doing that where he was taunting it, but the Bullet Club was on, behind AJ. So he's like, you want it? You want it? You want it? And he tosses it to Carl Anderson, and Carl's running around the ring. Hey, look, I got a shirt, you jackasses. It was awesome.
That's similar to what he did at the live event. He stood in the corner and he taunted the crowd, and then he cocked back to throw it, and it was right into the ground. Like it was such a heel move. But he's able to stand there, and you start. He's clearly in the villain role, and he's talking about how much he doesn't like these guys and he doesn't respect them, and then all of a sudden Ambrose goats him into the conversation about the good times they had, and he starts talking about it like, it's the same thing that he did when he first came out, where he talks about how much you guys missed me. Oh, it's good to be back. I'm so happy, but none of you did anything to help me, and I don't need you.
Well, watching him do that live, people were like, yeah, the Shield, and there's Shield chants behind me, and people were into it. And as soon as he made that turn, people turned on him for a second, stopped, and then started cheering. Like, the crowd wants to hate him so bad.
But that's the thing. He's so good, and it's the Stone Cold. It's what happened with The Rock. These guys are trying to be bad, and
Kevin
they're
Owens.
so good at it that the crowd, they have that first reaction of like, oh, you're building me up, I'm getting excited, and then you take it away from me.
You dick.
Your immediate reaction is, oh, that sucks, and then you realize how good that was, and you cheer it.
That was great.
And another thing I liked about that promo is Roman was good, because he only talked for 5-second clips,
right? Which
is what you need to do with him.
Yeah.
Him doing that was what Roman needs to do. I'll beat your ass.
Yeah.
He hit all the major points he needs to hit without making himself look stupid, which is the first time he's had a mic live on TV in front of the crowd in the ring
The one thing that did hurt him, at least in my eyes, like if you're trying to make him, if he's going to be the kids and women's character, great. Keep throwing up the hang tens. Keep smiling at everybody, high-fiving the crowd, doing that stuff. But if you're going to be the big Samoan badass, if you're going to be the guy that just destroys everybody, don't high-five the crowd. Don't throw up your little hang tens. Don't stick your tongue out and do that stuff. Like, don't. That's not what you are. Hey, if you want to be that guy, drop the gear, drop the flak jacket, drop all of that identity, go get a Fruity Pebbles John Cena gear setup.
Go join the Shining Stars.
Be that guy. Actually, there you go. That would make that
Right.
That would make that a thing.
But he's not Puerto Rican. Now,
that has never stopped the WWE before. So
hey, his cousin Yokozuna played a pretty convincing sumo wrestler.
Well, fair enough. But the one thing I noticed is Roman. I don't know what it was like at the live show, but watching him, normally you see wrestlers like the face guys slap hands like John Cena did it a lot. Roman, even during the dark match, didn't do that. He came out, did his stuff, and then left.
See, but he was doing a little bit of that coming to the ring. He gave like a couple of fist bumps. He gave the hang 10. Yeah, there was a little bit of that. At least he's not doing the tongue wag as much anymore. That was something that was really getting on my nerves.
Well, let me just say
he's getting better though.
That segment was my least favorite of the night for one reason. Because it completely and 100% altered my Money in the Bank pick. I knew that I had the winners pegged. I knew I had it all in my mind. And then they took it away from me.
Well, my prediction's
now
not
you
even
know
in the
that
match.
ain't happening.
They took it away because
they said it was
Dean Ambrose said he was going to take
And then I was like, well, never mind. Then none of this will work.
You just put it in everybody's head, so there you go.
No, it definitely won't happen.
I do think, though, that they've talked enough about cashing in the night of.
Yes.
I do feel like that's a possibility, and I think it's actually a big possibility because if whoever holds that briefcase gets separated during the draft, if they do decide to stick with just the one belt and it stays on Raw and the guy with the briefcase is going to SmackDown, that creates a whole new situation that you can't work out of. So I do think that there is a possibility of a cash in that night.
I think so too.
But I don't think whoever cashes it in wins. I think.
See, I think they put it on an interim champion while they figure out the brand split.
No, I think you're pretty safe with the belt sticking between Rollins or Reigns, and both of those guys are staying on Raw.
But we'll talk about that.
I've got
to
roll, gentlemen.
All right, yeah,
always good.
Professional life. There you go. Because we are technically broadcast professionals, and we are on schedules. So
no, we're not.
We're gonna keep trying to fly through this. We already talked a little bit about the Charlotte Dana Brooke Paige thing. Charlotte is great as a heel. She doesn't actually need a lot more to make her more villainous.
You continue your thought. I just remembered something that I'll tell you about here in a second.
Well, what I'm seeing with the women's division right now, because you have pretty much defined it as it's just about a title. Like that's the whole thing. There's no other real side stories going on. Every side story we see involves the title. Which is all right if you can get more women into that picture. And they've kind of done that with now Becky Lynch is partnering with Natalya, and they've been going back and forth. But the idea that the only way you can get women onto TV right now is through the championship kind of defeats the entire purpose of the Divas or the women's wrestling revolution.
I think what they're going to end up doing is either put the women's division on Raw or SmackDown and have that be their feature.
Yeah.
And you'll see multiple matches on whatever show that happens to be, which will help them build and give them more time. But right now, like I said, as well as with a lot of storylines and people, they're just trying to buy their time to July 19th.
This would be a perfect opportunity, and we don't really know any of their plans, but this would be a perfect opportunity if you want women's wrestling on both programs. You put a women's tag team division together, which is what I've been asking for.
Which they might, since this is a tag match.
Yeah, and you end up with the ability to get far more women onto TV every week. So you have one women's title match on Raw, or a match involving the title every week on Raw. That gets you 2 women on TV. 3 if you have a manager situation like a Dana Brooke or a security situation. Then you have a tag match on SmackDown. 4 women able to get them on, and that way you can expand. We'll see Alicia Fox again. We'll give Lana space to grow. We'll be able to bring up some of those NXT divas. or women's wrestlers. The Divas thing is so...
It's so ingrained in us, it's hard to get back to
I know,
women.
we need to break from it.
But speaking of Charlotte, I'm pretty sure Sheamus hates Charlotte.
Really?
Well, like I said, during his, when he comes down, they stopped the whole entrance so they could play it. You could see Sheamus visually turn to the screen, watch it for a few seconds, shake his head, put his head in his hands, yell something at the camera guy, and point at Charlotte, and then go back to...
That does lend to one of my theories from before, because Sheamus right now is fighting the new era. John Cena is fighting against the new era, and they're being vocal about being anti-new era. And Ric Flair is the guy who is essentially anti-new era at this point. So if you were going to have a leader of an old school anti-new era group, Ric Flair's your guy. And if Sheamus is one of your flag bearers, and you've got John Cena in that crew, who, by the way, those guys are best friends off camera as well. So if you have those two and Ric Flair in an anti-new era group, that could be... I don't want to put it in like the pocket of evolution, because it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the same thing. And that would be insane. Imagine if Ric Flair was named the general manager of SmackDown. Ric Flair goes to SmackDown. I'm 99.9% confident John Cena is the number one draft pick for SmackDown. Sheamus goes to SmackDown. That could be your SmackDown villainous stable. Your authority figure is now the anti-new era guys trying to keep the new era down.
It's an interesting story. It's going to be fascinating once we get to that point to see how it all plays out. I am ready to see it work because I get a feeling it's going to be pretty awesome.
All right, well, since we're on Sheamus, mad props to Zack Ryder for getting back on TV. He's got new gear in the store, too, so I think,
Which, if you buy online, comes with a free Zack Ryder autograph.
Really?
Yeah.
Did not see that. That's
He's been tweeting it out since they released it on either Sunday or Monday, whatever it was.
I'm happy where Zack Ryder's at right now. I mean, he had his WrestleMania moment. He's getting on TV. They're giving him new merch. He's not going to be one of those top-tier guys.
Yeah, he's never going to be in a heavyweight title picture. Most of the time, he's just going to be mid-card, which is fine. He makes the most of his things. The crowd enjoys him, and even when he loses, he puts on fun matches.
Yep.
Which is, that's all the check boxes you need. He never had a chance to be a main event guy, so the spot he's in, perfect. Maybe eventually he gets in the U.S. title picture or back in the IC or whatever happens to be the case, but, doing what he's doing is great for Zack Ryder. Good for him.
All right, before we get to the massive amount of Money in the Bank matches that we've had yet again with the guys who are going to be on the ladders this weekend, the last big thing we need to talk about from Raw is the John Cena, AJ Styles contract signing.
Yes.
Which, again, this is something that I hope Vince and Michael Hayes are taking note on. You just give those guys 2 microphones and say, go.
I think if you notice when AJ first got there, they were kind of hesitant to put a microphone in his hand. Like he'd start talking and someone would interrupt. I think, they gave him a little rope and a little more. And then finally they just figured out he's not that bad. Once you get past the Georgia boy accent, he's pretty damn good.
No, he is. I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. The problem is you're working with 2 new guys cutting promos against each other. There's a little bit of you need to. It's just like working a match. You need to know what the other guy's going to say or what his cadence is when he's going. And considering that those 2 have been split on live shows, they haven't had the ability even in a house show to go toe-to-toe. It's all been live.
Plus, Cena, was out, so when AJ got there, it's not like he could have a conversation with him in the back because he wasn't there. So literally, they probably met, the night before when John Cena showed up, for his big comeback Raw.
And I would love to be on the headset in the truck to hear Vince's reaction when those guys are going back and forth, because I want to know, is Vince all for the New Japan drops and the constant Bullet Club drops? I want to know if that's actually something that he's embracing or if it makes his skin crawl.
It's got to, because despite what they do on the microphone, Vince is feeding Michael Cole, because that's basically what one of Vince does in the gorilla position is, make sure all the announcers are getting the right stuff, if you ever watch back. And they've been dropping New Japan Pro Wrestling drops for how long?
Maybe the New Japan Pro Wrestling one isn't the one, but the fact that John Cena, again, snuck in and he did it a different way. He gave the whole, we'll send you back to Japan on a bullet train. Like that, exactly what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to know.
And from listening to Jericho's podcast, even though Jericho's great and they give him a lot of free reign, Vince has to give final approval for everything. No matter how good you are.
But he can't give final approval when you're out there just off the cuffing it, which is what these guys have been doing. And so I want to know what Vince is.
I bet it's more structured than we're thinking it is, but...
Now you can see the wheels turning on their faces there, and the Bullet Club reference that John Cena had a couple weeks ago that got edited out of the secondary airings. That one, I think, was actually more based on the fact that there was a big Bullet Club sign that he turned around and saw, and it was just in his head, and he fired away. But I wonder if that opened the door to where Vince went, "Hey, okay." Freaks out, waits to see if anything happens. Nothing happens, and so then he says, "All right, let's." Go ahead and just say bullet train in the conversation and see what happens.
Well, like I said, I bet there's a lot of conversations with Vince and those guys, and they may not have – they probably have implicit approval is what I'm thinking.
I am enjoying where those two are and the ability to bring Cena back right away, make him uber important. That match actually right now – they keep saying this is the greatest Money in the Bank pay-per-view of all time. They're not lying, and that's not hyperbole either. No. Because you have two matches that are actually better than...
the main event for Mania.
The champion... Well, yeah, better than that by far. But you have two matches in this pay-per-view that are going to be better than the title match, which is also a title match that could headline WrestleMania. You've got a Money in the Bank ladder match that is being looked forward to more than this heavyweight championship match. And you now have an AJ Styles, John Cena once-in-a-lifetime type match that people are looking forward to more than that Money in the Bank or the title match.
I don't know if it's more looking forward to, but it's definitely, unlike most pay-per-views or shows where the title match is always the most important and there's nothing even close. This is three matches that are of equality that are just going to be amazing because they have amazing workers in them. Despite what you think about Roman Reigns on the mic and his gimmick, guy in the ring is good.
Making a match that's not involving the title bigger than the title match is something really, really hard to do, and they've done it twice.
And Cena even said it during his promo, where me and AJ are the only two guys that can walk around in the back without a strap and still be called champ. We're just that good. This is going to be a damn good match. I mean, I've said it before, I hate the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. I loved it as a feature on WrestleManias. This is the first Money in the Bank pay-per-view where I'm like, I'm all in. Let's do this.
I am pretty damn excited about it. What I haven't been excited about is every week for the past 5 or 6 weeks, we have had matches after matches involving the participants in the Money in the Bank ladder match. This week was the first time that they actually structured it in a way where you involved all of those guys in matches that had some importance to them. That's the one thing that I've been asking for this whole time. And even when it's importance like a house show title match where you know that the belt's not changing hands but it's still on the line, when you have a backstage situation where Kane and Shane and Stephanie put importance on a tag team match where, hey, if you guys don't work together, if you leave, if you lose this match, you're out of the pay-per-view match. They did that with Owens and Del Rio, and they made him go fight a tag match with Lucha Dragons. That actually put some importance on the line with that match.
Not to mention, Del Rio lost his U.S. title to Kalisto, so there was that air of, Could this as soon as he hit the Selena del Sol or whatever the hell he calls that move, there was an audible gasp in the little area where I was sitting, like, no way.
Yeah. But that's what you do when you make it important. The last few weeks when we've just had grudge matches, basically, between the guys who are participating with nothing on the line, like, what does it matter? Kevin Owens just walks up the ramp and leaves. What does it change?
Oh, yeah, I don't disagree, but I think they're like, all right, these are the kind of standard matches you always have in this type of thing, and they got lazy, and then finally people like you and everyone else were beating them up online, sending complaints, and they're like, all right, let's get the creative juices flowing, and it finally dawned on them, like, you know what? It's not that hard to make these matches interesting.
No.
Let's do this.
Yeah, just put a little stipulation. And it doesn't even have to be that stipulation because there was no stipulation on the Jericho-Ambrose match at the end outside of having Owens and Zayn on commentary, Del Rio as the timekeeper, and Cesaro on the mic. Having those guys involved in that way made that match must-see.
Also, it helped add some story to the whole Shane-Stephanie beef of, hey, these are our boys. Help me out, Shane. Help me out. And then, Owens and Del Rio going to Stephanie and being like, do you know what your idiot brother did?
Which that part of that story is way more cohesive and way more entertaining than the interaction actually between the two.
I don't disagree, but I guess you have to have that kind of too. Like, hey, they're taking more shots. It's getting uglier. And then, but the confusing part was at the live show, we couldn't hear the promo in the back like they played the video, but we had no idea what was going on. So when Cesaro's music hit and Sami Zayn's music hit, everyone went, what the hell is happening?
You know what I'm realizing as I'm looking back at my notes? I think that we got through a 3-hour Raw that was pretty entertaining. I think there were only 6 matches. There were only 6 matches that took place Monday night. I mean, you saw way more because you saw like Superstars and the dark matches and stuff.
By the way, I didn't talk about this just while we're brought up Superstars. One of the biggest pops of the night, oddly enough, were for a commentator. Can you venture to guess?
Oh, you already told me. I already know. And I think I know why.
Well, there was 2 huge pops. I mean, well, there was a lot, but 2 of the most surprising were JBL.
Yep.
And Dolph Ziggler, who were both doing commentary.
Dolph always gets a pop.
But the weird thing is, like, they showed his little thing, and the music was at, like, half volume because they played, David Otunga, and, people were doing, hey, we're about to start taping Superstars, so it wasn't a whole lot of fanfare. But, like, they came out, and all of a sudden, holy crap! And I don't know. I guess I couldn't catch it because another thing is, as soon as the show ended, like, literally, I knew when the TV feed was over because JBL threw off his headset, got up, and left. Like, he was the first one off the table back. So I don't know if he had a rough night or if someone, was in his headpiece like, hey, you screwed this up. I don't know what the situation was, but he did not look happy, and he was gone, Jack.
Yeah, I don't know, but I would say that JBL gets a good pop for the same reason that Lawler gets a good pop still. He is the heel commentator, which automatically gives him... the heel is always the best commentator when you have a guy like Michael Cole. When you have Morrow down there, that changes the game. But against Michael Cole, yeah, JBL is the guy that everyone's supposed to like.
Funny thing, right before the John Cena AJ Styles promo, Cole gets in the ring after they set up the table and the chairs and all that, and he's talking to the camera guy, and as soon as he leans back to get into broadcast position, the crowd just starts raining boos on him. Like, it's dark, the lights are out because they're playing something from, like a commercial or a promo or whatever, and he just gets in position, and they just let him have it.
Yeah. All right. A couple of the other extracurricular stuff involving the podcast and pro wrestling. I want to give mad props real quick to Forbes magazine because Forbes is covering WWE right now.
Yeah.
There are so many mainstream news outlets that are covering WWE as far as ESPN is having a weekly interview. They're covering it on the website. Vanity Fair is covering it. But Forbes magazine was one that caught my attention. Like, wow, Forbes... That Forbes, like essentially the modern Wall Street Journal, is covering pro wrestling on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
That to me is huge right now.
I think the first story I saw with them was a story they did about the possible return of CM Punk, which, by the way, I'm convinced is happening.
Yeah, there were so many weird drops of people like Natalya and Michael Cole both using terms like punked, or somebody's about to be punked, or like just they were sliding it in there so much.
Well, the other thing, too, is you know how like WWE has a huge back catalog of stuff that they can sell, blah, 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 but they literally have hundreds and hundreds of commercials and promos they could use for pushing stuff at their live shows, right? Like 3 or 4 out of the dozen they showed all featured CM Punk prominently. Like the Scooby-Doo WWE Murder Mysteries featuring CM Punk. And it's like, and then you add that to this, plus the whole deal they got going with Vince and the UFC.
There's
something is afoot.
There's so many possibilities right now that I'm not. 4 months ago, I said on the podcast, never happening. Changing my tone right now. Unlikely it's happening, but I'm not saying never anymore.
Hey, yeah, we're looking at Ronda Rousey. That's exactly what we're doing.
Wink, wink.
Yeah.
Oh, man. But one of the things that I did want to point out with Forbes, too, is, and we noticed this, I don't remember whose article it was one of the dirt sheets. The last few weeks, we have felt, you and I, as we've talked about this on the podcast, that the Raws have been good. We've been enjoying them. They've had elements to it that are hearkening back to the Attitude Era, that are utilizing the athleticism they have on the roster. They're keeping us intrigued because they have possibilities that might happen. You never know, which is what you strive for in pro wrestling. However, what I read from Forbes about this week's Raw, they essentially hated it. A lot of C minuses, a lot of C pluses, not a lot of A's involved. And you and I were going through and talking about, there was something online that we saw where people were trashing a lot of the things that we just got done saying, wow, this is great that they're doing this. I don't know if there's such a divide right now between people who became pro wrestling fans during the Ruthless Aggression PG era versus all of the people who were Attitude Era guys that are coming back or never left. There seems to be a divide right now in pro wrestling fandom and the coverage of pro wrestling. Some people are still watching and hating what's happening. And people like us are sitting here going, wow, this is finally what you should have been doing 5 years ago.
Well, I think the more eyes you put on a product, whether you do it through this, you bring in new people, and new people, every set of eyes that get on there have a different perspective. You and I watch the same show, and we'll disagree about things all the time.
True.
And we're both. So the more people and the more eyes you get on a product, and the more spread out, whether it's ESPN, Forbes, Wall Street Journal, Variety, all these different places. Oh, they're covering WWE? What the hell's going on? I'll watch it Monday night. So the more people you get involved, the more differing opinions. So you have old school guys, people that are brand new, people that have never watched, people that haven't watched since the 80s, all coming back with different feelings and connections and varying levels of, caring, basically, for different people.
Yeah, maybe that is it. Maybe it's just more eyes, more opinions. But it's just weird that we were asking for it to go this direction. It's going this direction. We're happy about it. I just assumed everyone was going to be happy because it seems like these same people have been complaining about the product for a long time. And if this isn't making them happy, I don't know what will.
Greg, you're forgetting one important fact. People on the internet will bitch about anything.
Very true.
I mean, look at us.
And if you want to bitch about this podcast, feel free to do it in the comment section on YouTube, on our Facebook page, and you can also follow us on Twitter. We are going to knock out a couple more podcasts this week. We have to. There's just too much to talk about.
We do. Plus, you have a special guest on an upcoming podcast that we'll put together, I'm assuming, some point.
It'll be up this week. I don't know if we're going to tag it on the back of a longer podcast, or we might just put it up as a small independent podcast. Got a chance to talk to Trish Stratus this morning, so we'll get a podcast with Trish. Did not cross that bridge while we were talking, but she did have some interesting opinions. I wanted to ask her about Matt Bloom, a guy who she worked with early in her career.
TNA.
And he is now the head trainer at NXT. So I wanted to know her. Did she ever feel like that was actually going to happen? Did she see that coming? So we talk about that a little bit. We got some other things we talk about. So we'll put that up. We got to talk about NXT TakeOver from last week because we still haven't done that.
God, it's so
vacations
good.
Came up in between, and we weren't able to sit down and talk about it. And then we have to do a predictions podcast for this week's Money in the Bank on Sunday night.
Not to mention, NXT just scheduled a new tour for all you NXT-ites. Yep. Might want to buy tickets when they go on sale June 17th.
All right. We will do all of those podcasts coming up this week. It is a big, huge week for the Raw Meat Podcast. Thank you for listening to us. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook. It is the Raw Meat Podcast.
Eat it, like it, love it.